I am the Steiny.
I am the Luke.
We are industry. I am the Jew.
I am the skinny guy.
We are industry. Wherever we may go, we bring awesome shows. I promote and market.
And I manage the band.
Because I am the Steiny.
I am the Luke.
We are in the street. Call your mother.
Yay!
Ooh. Ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101.
Motor 101.
Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101.
Word.
Hi, this is Jason Miller from Live Nation, SVP of International and Emerging Markets. You are on Promoter 101.
Welcome, everybody, to the Promoter 101 podcast. It's the quarantine sessions continuing today. It's our 208th episode. And joining me from his secluded social distancing, beautiful Vista, Florida, is Mr. W. Luke Pierce, fresh off the links.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Carol Baskin absolutely killed her husband. Looking forward to a great episode today. Welcome back, everybody. We've got some amazing stuff in front of us. We got a good war story coming up from the front lines of the COVID epidemic. And later, a full-length sit-down with Ineffable Music's Thomas Cussins.
On top of that, Luke, did you hear there's a rumor, and it seems like a very credible rumor, that there will be an additional episode of Tiger King released this week on Netflix?
I haven't heard this, Dan. This is very exciting news. I mean, we need something to keep us going.
Who knows about season 2, but it sounds like it's just such a demand thing right now that they're going to roll out one more episode of extra footage. So I can't wait.
Well, stay tuned. Episode 209. I'm sure we'll have some things to say about it.
Indeed. But I agree. Carol killed him. There's no
absolutely. She absolutely killed him. Her second husband was Tiger Sashimi. Let's be real.
So I don't know if everybody's seen it yet, but it seems like the internet is all agreed since we're all locked in. If you got Netflix, Tiger King is just a train wreck. We all need to be wasting our time since we're basically on home arrest right now. Check it out because it's just batshit insane awesome. It's a train wreck you can't stop watching.
It truly is.
And we have a war story straight out of 28 Days Later with Home Free's tour manager, Jenika, Marion, Foust. Good friend of both mine and Luke's, and a tremendous, tremendous story of how they got back from Europe. So that's going to be fun to hear.
Escaping Europe and escaping Munich. It was a crazy, crazy time. After the war story, we're going to be talking with Jessica Gordon. She's from Broadberry Entertainment Group, and she's organizing independent promoters and talent buyers across the country in a new organization, the Independent Promoter Alliance.
Promoter 101 starts right now.
I'm Jason Miller. I'm the president of Live Nation New York, live and direct on Promoter 101.
However you found your way here, you can always get in touch with Luke and I. And please send us emails as just like you were in home seclusion, and we can't wait to hear you. And we've been getting great feedback from everybody. We want to hear your ideas about shows, topics. Even if you want to volunteer yourself to be a part of the show, shout at us. We want to hear. Steiny at promoter101.net is how you find us. We'd love to hear from you. Particularly anybody that just really has something that's important to talk about right now. Like, we're looking for good content.
That we are, and we appreciate all the tweets, the messages, the emails with ideas for this show. You know, when we decided to do some quarantine sessions here, this was all about giving some entertainment, giving some love to this industry in a time where we're going to be shut down relatively indefinitely. So to have people reach out and suggest things for us to talk about makes it really interesting for us. So help us out. Join the conversation. You can hit us on Twitter. Dan's at The Jew. This show is Promoter 101. I'm at W. Luke Pierce. Find us on Instagram. Find us wherever you're at on social. Hit us up. Let us know what you want to hear on next week's episode, and we'll do our best to make it happen.
And as always, find us on the World Wide Web at promoter101.com. Plus, now find us on LinkedIn.
Hi, this is Jason Miller from Live Nation, SVP of International and Emerging Markets. You are on Promoter 101.
You can go to promoter101.net and catch up on any of the past episodes. This week, bringing you one of the originals, we feature AEG's big dog, Jay Marciano. That's the CEO of all of AEG, and right here talking to us about the world in general, about 3 years ago and change, about how the world was going back then. And it holds up, I think, Luke.
I really think it does, Dan. This is one of the early episodes of Promoter 101, episode 12. But despite all the time that happened between that session at Aspen Live and today, a lot of the things that Jay says rings true. So go ahead, check it out, promoter101.com, episode 12 with AEG CEO Jay Marciano.
I'm Jason Miller. I'm the president of Live Nation New York, live and direct on Promoter 101.
News of the week.
There's a lot going on in the news right now, but just for a moment, I want to talk about Luke with his financial mind and get an idea of what we're looking at. Now, there's an article that came out this week in Business Insider that 110,000 restaurants are expected to close up this week forever across the country. 110,000 businesses. Roughly $25 billion in sales will be lost and 3 million jobs because of the pandemic. Also, the S&P downgraded AMC Theaters about them coming out of this and the negative cash flow and the impact that it might have on them and whether they'll even be able to come out of this. Luke, what's your take?
I mean, listen, it's easy to sit on this podcast and talk about what is impacting the music business and entertainment. It's the stuff that we live and breathe every day. But the reality is, I don't know how many businesses out there in the world were prepared for any sort of interruption like this. So while you say 110,000 restaurants, I'm surprised that the number is not higher. And quite frankly, the situation that we have right now in terms of the spread of the virus, at least domestically, it doesn't seem to be improving anytime soon. And we have the Surgeon General of America stepping on stage this week and saying this might be the heaviest week for fatalities and spread of the virus, and we should be prepped for some deep and sad news. And that is absolutely terrifying because I don't know where the end in sight is for this, Dan. Getting the economy back to work is definitely a priority for a lot of people, but we have to do it in a safe way. And so when we think about the businesses that are going to be impacted by the end of this, I think about what kind of consumer trends are going to roll out of this and how the landscape might change when this is all said and done. And I had a conversation with our friend Andrea Johnson the other night, and she made a very astute point about the science behind habit making and that it takes 60-something days for a habit to form. And when you consider the fact that it is a real outcome that we should consider, that we may be in a shelter-in-place or quarantine environment until the end of May, at the top of June. That'll be more than 60 days. So let's consider how our brains and our lives will be rewired in a 60-day period. And coming out of that, going out to stores, going out to restaurants, going out to bars, to shows, to movies. I mean, all of this stuff is finding its way to be replaced or substituted with some sort of stay-at-home option. And who knows if people are really going to want to come out of this or travel as much as they do. I think so many things are being replaced. And so I think this pandemic is going to have a completely paradigm shift in the way that we consume as a society. And I think it's going to be very interesting and very telling to see what comes out of this in June or July or whenever, we're told that we can leave our houses. And I don't even know when that date is, Dan, but I can't see it being any time before the top of June.
Well, I've got you. And you said paradigm and you meant it in the shift format, but I want to talk about the lawsuit that came out this week.
Yeah.
Your first lawsuit of the people that were furloughed. And this one was throwing some real dirt at Sam Gore directly. I know you read the article because we were texting it back and forth. And I think probably just like you, I got that from a bunch of people.
Right.
Now, all the agencies are having problems trying to figure out their cash flow. So I don't want to pick on Paradigm by any means. Companies are going to have to do what they're going to do. And this is going to be every company across the board, not just Paradigm. But this lawsuit in particular had some pretty big dirt that had nothing to do with the shutdown per se. It just aired some really mean accusations.
And then for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, former TV lit agent Debbie Klein, who from my friends at Paradigm tell me was a significant agent in leadership at that agency, leveled a pretty damning lawsuit against Sam Gores, the CEO of Paradigm, about some personal use of company funds. And the suit is being brought forth by a guy named Brian Friedman, who has represented such high-profile cases as Megyn Kelly and her legal battle with NBC News. Most recently, Deborah Dungan sued the Recording Academy for her work. So as much as it is, I think, a first pass by an ex-agent trying to bring some light to this too, I think this is going to really reveal some warts about the Paradigm Agency and kind of the culture of leadership that was existing there with Sam Gores. So it's crazy to see some of these things come to light. And as Dave Brooks points out in a recent article in Billboard, that the response from Paradigm was relatively lame. It was, all talking about First Amendment stuff. It wasn't really anything to directly address the things that are brought forth in the lawsuit. And so, I don't think any agency really is going to be immune from the types of economic headwinds that they're experiencing here. But for this to unravel in the way that it did is pretty damning for Paradigm. And I think this might be, the first finger pulled from the dam in terms of the floodgates breaking in the agency world, in terms of agents leaving, clients leaving. All these things are about to unravel. And who knows what the agency landscape is going to be like when this is all said and done. CAA seems to be the only one that's relatively unscathed by this at this point. They haven't made major announcements. And by most financial reports, they're a relatively unlevered, debt-free company with diverse interests across the board. But even these companies like UTA and CAA and WME, who have big, broad, diverse interests in film and television, that no one's opening a movie right now. No tentpole movies are opening right now. So all those really sweet $1 gross deals for Robert Downey Jr., those aren't happening. So you're losing two significant streams of revenue for agencies in touring, as well as motion picture talent, motion picture lit, and all the things that come from that. So
plus the writers were already having a strike issue where they were fighting all the agencies.
I think that's a saving grace for a lot of agencies, quite frankly, is that they didn't settle with the WGA and they didn't stop getting paid on some of those packaging fees from shows like Cheers in the 80s. I mean, all those agencies are still getting paid on those things. And had they settled this before, who knows if they would be getting those revenue streams from packaging fees from shows in the 80s and 90s that have traditionally been the large recurring bread and butter revenues for these businesses. It doesn't seem like that settlement is anywhere near in sight. And just the happen chance that they didn't settle this before this all broke out is probably saving a lot of people's asses right now.
Let's point out that this is just alleged accusations at Sam and Paradigm, and nothing has been proven yet. It's just a suit that's been brought in. So none of this stuff is, and we've got a lot of friends there, and who knows how this turns out, but they're just accusations at the moment. Do you think that all the rumors of the UTA Paradigm merger, that they turned down, they're second guessing that right now?
I think there's two sides of this coin, right? Part of this lawsuit that was brought forward alleges that Sam Gores told his partners at X-Ray and Coda in the UK, who had been, rolled up into the Paradigm Agency world of things in the past couple of years, that Sam informed those partners only 48 hours before the deal was set to close. The UTA partnership acquisition, whatever you want to call it, was put on kibosh by those partners in a 48-hour window prior to the deal closing. So if you're Sam Gores, yes, this is going to be a major publicity hit. It's going to be really challenging for the agency top to bottom. But at the same time, you just laid off 250 people. Some of those are probably temporary. Some of those might come back. This might be an absolutely terrible thing to say, but by cutting roughly a third of its workforce, Sam Gores might have created some more value for himself down the line in a sale, carrying less of that, a smaller number of headcount at this point. It may be something that maybe is a more attractive proposition for him to level it at a certain price as compared to what he was talking about back in August or September of last year when these rumors were circulated in the first place. So who really knows? But at the end of the day, news like this in a time where we're all consumed by news can't be favorably received from artists, from lawyers, from managers, from representatives. It raises a lot of questions about the agency, and hopefully Sam can address them.
The other thing I wanted to mention is you said all the other major agencies are cutting back. I don't think we've heard anything from ICM yet, and I think that might have to do with the cash infusion that they got right before all this happened.
That could very well be too. And ICM is another agency where the bread and butter was TV. TV in the 90s for ICM was a heavy packaging business. They packaged some of the biggest shows that were on TV, and so those packaging fees, while still in limbo with the WGA settlement that's looming right now, they're still getting paid on that. So I think that, again, we go back to how fortunate it was for the agencies that they didn't settle that WGA suit before this, that they're still getting paid on those recurring packaging, streams, which can be significant for agencies.
Luke, yesterday the president came out and announced that he thought the NFL would be back in time to play games. And then immediately a bunch of the governors and mayors said they don't see that happening. They're not making official decisions yet, but why are we announcing these things at this point? What's your thought on this? It seems a little weird.
I know the president on Saturday had calls with all the major commissioners of all the major sporting leagues. And, I'm sure that as long as they started the conversation with Trump is awesome, that the conversation went very well. And I don't know why the president keeps doing things like this, but the reality is that he himself has like the least amount of idea of when this is all going to end, and the least amount of grasp of control, seemingly in his administration.
Is that a stock market thing, you think? If we announce football will be back in the fall, the market might go up?
I mean,
we've got this nailed now?
A little bit, but I think it's just NFL's good red meat for his base, right? Like, you want to talk football, you want to talk baseball, you want to talk about the big American sport things that are going to get people excited about this when they have to go to the ballot box in November. And I think, keeping his poll numbers up and keeping maybe the stock market up and signaling towards the reopening of the economy is something that certainly will play well to his base.
So I would have thought NASCAR would have been the easiest thing to put back together. And I get you'd have to do it with the stands empty. But what I didn't realize and think about it all, because I've never been to a NASCAR event, is how many people are in a pit crew, how close the pit crews are to each other, and what it takes to put those races on. So even though the cars are separated and everybody has their space, you still have these amazing crews that are working in very close quarters. So you got problems there. But yet MMA, UFC seems to be finding their little nooks and crannies to do real events.
Yeah, I think a few sports organizations bungled the delay, release, whatever of their sports, particularly golf. I don't know why golf couldn't have been played spectatorless. It's like the most, this is Masters week right now, for those of you counting it at home. And so that was suspended indefinitely. I think it's maybe something in the fall.
Which is a shame, because I'm pretty sure I was going to get the gold jacket this year.
Yeah, gold in the Happy Gilmore world of things. But I'm sure, everyone is pretty excited about Tiger Woods getting to wear the green jacket for another year and a half or whatever it might be at this point. But I think that
can you only wear the jacket on the tour the next year if you won the following year, or can you wear it anytime once you won?
I actually think with a green jacket, they allow you to wear it at certain public appearances in the year that you won. Like Patrick Reed wore his green jacket sidelines at an NBA game one year that he won it. Of course, Patrick Reed did that. He's the most hateable guy on the tour. So to wear a green jacket at a sporting event seems like something right up his alley. But I think after the year that you have with it, it's actually returned to Augusta National. Now, quote me if I'm wrong about that. I really don't know, but I believe I did read somewhere that the jacket's really not taken off grounds after your kind of year of, whatever your tour to victory lap at that point,
Wow, okay. I did think, like Happy Gilmore, they all came together for receptions wearing their jackets if they won. And,
they do for the
exactly the rules.
The Champions Dinner at Augusta and the weekend before. But my point is, why couldn't they done that spectatorless? I mean, there's nothing else going on TV. It seems like a huge miss in golf to not be playing that. You don't have to touch the pins. You can have somebody out there with gloves removing the pin or raking the bunkers or whatever. There's plenty of things you can do to observe social distance. And most of the time, you're at least 6 feet away from your playing partner out there. So.
And when is professional bowling going to get back on track? I mean, let's just put people in different lanes. We're good.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know what ESPN is airing right now. I haven't watched ESPN.
The Ocho, baby.
And, like rock throwing, cornhole. What the fuck is on TV right now? I mean, we should turn it on and look, because I can't believe it,
Professional bowling back. Just what you've been waiting for.
Yeah. Did you see that Ken Griffin, who is a billionaire who runs Citadel Securities, opened up a new temporary trading floor in Palm Beach this past week? So he's got 24 of his staffers, and he basically rented out a hotel and then rented out the ballroom space. And then he's got a site for a capacity of 50 people that's part of this hotel property that's closed to the public and closed to the staff. And this billionaire rented it out so that he could keep his team together and trading under social quarantine. Pretty brilliant. So
what an ass move to do.
Took his team from Chicago and took his team from New York, who will work and sleep in that hotel and operate off of a trading floor in that hotel. I think it's, let's talk about next level billionaire shit. That's some stuff right there.
Yeah, it's very Bobby Axelrod. Very Bobby
Axelrod. Actually, there's an excellent book about the inspiration for Bobby Axelrod called The Black Edge, which is about SAC Capital's Steve Cohen and about his pursuit, well, the FBI's pursuit and the SEC's pursuit of Steve Cohen, who was one of the most successful hedge fund managers of all time. And he is loosely the basis for the inspiration for Bobby Axelrod. And they talk about in that book, anytime Steve Cohen, who had like a master station workstation like you do have at home, Dan, several desks, several trading monitors, and an intercom that he could press a button to speak to his entire team. When he would go and travel to an event, they would send an advanced team with an exact replication of that and put it into a adjoining hotel room next to him so that he could have uninterrupted workspace exactly as he had it in his Connecticut offices.
I wonder what that's going to do to my T&E expense now that I know about that.
Yeah, send an advanced team, man.
Well, we'll be sure to make that happen as soon as we're allowed to travel again safely. Kind of wondering how many people are going to have the ability to possibly work from home when this is over, where agencies are going to figure, and maybe even promoters and shit, the entire world, right? What are the options that people say, why are we paying for all the square footage every month when some people are just as productive at home? Some people probably want to be back in the office, but some people probably can work remotely. And I'm wondering if that's going to change the way we do business coming out of this too.
In terms of the U.S., I know that there's a certain percentage of companies that were already allowing employees to work remotely. And I think the reality is for some companies that were iffy about trying this, they may have been proven wrong, that you can work effectively from home. And so I think there's a degree of happiness that you gain from working from home for a lot of employees. And so testing those kind of assumptions or norms is going to be something that may positively come out of this thing, is that remote work for everyone might be a thing.
Well, let me tell you, look, when I was an independent promoter, I mostly worked from home. And I have fond memories of those days as I'm working from my home desk again for the first time in 18 months or so. I'm hearing about and thinking about the independent promoters, and then there's an independent promoter coalition, and you had the opportunity to talk to Broadberry Entertainment Group's Jessica Gordon about just what's going on there.
You're absolutely right, Dan. About a week and a half ago, Jessica Gordon from Broadberry Entertainment Group in Richmond, Virginia, announced that with partnership with David Poe and Patchwork Presents out in New York, that they would be forming an independent promoter alliance, an organization dedicated to providing independent promoters and talent buyers across the country with the resources and the discourse they can have during this time about the challenges they are all collectively facing together. So I had the chance to sit down for a little bit with Jessica and talk about some of the goals, the initiatives, and the things that will come out of this conversation. And like we talked about here, Dan, the long-term effects of coronavirus, Independent Promoter Alliance may be a place where promoters from an independent setting could come together and talk about some of the challenges they're facing on a go-forward basis. So here's that interview. Well, in last week's Billboard, I read a very great article that was pointed out to one of our listeners, Lucas Fritz from Broadberry Entertainment Group, about a organization forming between Dave Poe of New York-based Patchwork Presents and today's guest, Broadberry Entertainment Group's Jessica Gordon, who's joining us from Richmond, Virginia today. And we're here to talk about the Independent Promoter Alliance, an organization that she and Dave are spearheading. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks, Luke.
First of all, everybody in your world, family, is happy, healthy, and safe right now?
Yeah, everyone here in Richmond, at least that I know, is happy, healthy, and safe. Obviously, that's something that's changing every day around here and everywhere.
You, as part of the Broadberry Entertainment Group, look over a number of venues in Richmond as well as a number of shows throughout the area. So are all your staff and employees across your venues okay right now?
They are healthy right now. Obviously none of the venues are open and none of the staff are able to work right now, but I'm in contact with them regularly and we're all close friends, and yeah, they're doing okay as best as can be.
Well, I think it'd be helpful if our listeners learn a little bit more about you and your background before we start talking about the Independent Promoter Alliance that you're forming with Dave Poe. So from Richmond, independent promoter, but how'd you get your start and what are you doing right now?
Yeah. So I've been booking live music for 17 years now. Yeah, about 17 years. So I got my start. I started bartending in venues when I was in college, a whole bunch of different venues in Richmond. And I just kind of inadvertently learned how to settle shows and how to run shows, and then ultimately, how to book and promote them. It wasn't something like I intended to go into necessarily, but kind of learned how to do it. So the company that I own and run with my partner, Lucas, who you mentioned a few minutes ago, is called Broadberry Entertainment Group. We book 5 different rooms exclusively in different markets in Virginia, and then like another 10 or so non-exclusively in Virginia, West Virginia, and DC. And I don't know if I told you this before, but I'm also a professor at Virginia Commonwealth University here in Richmond too.
Interdisciplinary PhD in visual arts, right? That's some impressive bona fides there, right?
Yeah, thank you. I actually teach a class sometimes in podcasting too, so this is like super interesting to me for so many different reasons.
Well, we're glad to have you on here. So a lot of busy things going on in Richmond right now, a lot of busy things going on in the Northeast, which is, of course, the epicenter of coronavirus outbreak in America here. Talk to me a little bit about the initial conversations of Independent Promoter Alliance and the approach to Dave Poe from Patchwork in New York about forming a group to support independent promoters and independent venues. How did you start that conversation?
Yeah, so Dave and I are friends and kind of just chat regularly in a casual way. And we had talked a few times in the past just about, how useful it would be if we could have sort of larger conversations with larger groups of promoters. And so as everything has kind of unfolded over the last couple of weeks, we got to talking and decided that it would be a good idea to put together we were calling it a committee at first, but like kind of a group that could just provide a place for independent talent buyers and promoters to discuss kind of strategies for dealing with the effects of coronavirus and like all the different challenges that I think many of us are facing right now. We really just wanted to provide a platform for independent promoters to talk and exchange ideas and just kind of hear what other people are doing to deal with everything that's happening and everything that we're all facing right now and into the future. We all know there's going to be really long-lasting effects. I mean, I guess I would add, in my opinion, I feel like in almost all other fields, there's professional communities that people can join in order to kind of network with others in the same field and learn about, how other people approach the same kinds of work that they're doing. But for independent promoters and talent buyers, at least in my opinion, that has long been noticeably absent. For example, just speaking for myself, during the first half of the 17 years I've been booking shows, I felt like I did it pretty much in isolation. I knew like a handful of promoters, but, not super well. And I wasn't in contact with them all on a daily or weekly basis. And it's only been over the last 7 or 8 years that that's really changed for me and just has, countless benefits. It's just super, super useful.
So what do you plan for Independent Promoters Alliance at this point? Your first thing is you got to gather up everybody out there, right? So how are you communicating out to independent buyers and promoters out there in the world? How are you getting the word out about this right now?
So what Dave and I did to get started was create a Google form, and we put 4 or 5 questions in the Google form, and they're mostly just like basic data, like what's your name and what's your company. But one of the questions that we asked people was, what are your 3 main concerns in dealing with COVID-19 and, how in the industry thereafter? We have well over 100 people in the alliance now, and it's been really interesting to be able to kind of go through and look at the answers that they gave to that question in particular, and see sort of a lot of overlap in people's concerns, but also a bit of diversity as well. So, I mean, our goal right now moving forward, we've collected this information. And by the way, this has only been going on, I think we sent that form out maybe 6 days ago. It hasn't been very long. So our goal now is that we have a meeting set up for this coming Wednesday, and we're going to focus that meeting kind of on the top 3 concerns that we see have emerged in the Google form in response to that question when people registered. So our goal for this first meeting is really just to kind of hear what promoters are thinking about in terms of those concerns and let everybody kind of have a moment to share, how they're feeling about that. And then thereafter, I think our goal for the group is kind of to let the group form a set of shared goals and then help one another to work towards ways to accomplish them.
So what are those concerns? What are people writing in about with questions and ideas for discussions here? What's on everyone's mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been looking through all of everybody's answers over the last week, and I kind of looked through them all today as well. The number one concern that I see almost everybody expressing is just concerns about ticket sales and how they will be down after the pandemic ends, because people aren't going to have money to purchase tickets. And then also, the concerns about people, even if they have the money to purchase tickets, but maybe not feeling safe going into a packed venue, right? So once this is over and we kind of just, the social distancing begins to end, are people going to feel like going into a small restaurant? Maybe, or a shop? Sure. But are they going to feel like going to a concert with 500 or 1,500 people? I mean, who knows? And how long will it take people to feel comfortable doing something like that again and feel safe doing it? So I think ticket sales is the main concern that I see people expressing, for both of those reasons, lack of money and fear for one's own safety. Definitely the second concern that people have, and I mean, I share all of these too, the oversaturation in markets that we're going to see. because, I'll just talk about myself, but our calendars, especially in our smaller rooms, are anywhere from 10 to 20 holes deep on Tuesdays, let alone on weekends. So, what we're seeing happen is that everybody, and we want this, we're excited to reschedule shows, and all of the agents want to reschedule the postponed shows, but then we see those shows getting scheduled alongside fall tour and spring tour that was also, yet to be planned when all of this happened. And so I think the concern that most promoters have right now is that we're going to be booking in markets where every single venue is going to have one show or maybe even two shows every single night of the week. So once, the competition is just going to increase dramatically. And so I think people are really concerned with that, especially in conjunction with the worries about ticket sales. And I think the other two things that I see promoters talking about and sharing in terms of their concerns are, worries about what kinds of deals we can make moving forward, right? So we're all making offers for fall and for next spring, but we have no idea what fall and spring are going to look like right now. So, people are really concerned because there's so much ambiguity in the future. And then obviously people who own venues are really concerned about how to get through the next 2 or 3 or more months without any income. So I would say those are like the 4 main things that I see people saying over and over again in their answers.
And those are all very valid concerns for the traffic that's just going to develop naturally over time as people try to save their 2020 fiscal years. I don't know another way to not collapse calendars and play all the shows that we're playing from March until May by just squeezing them into October, November. So do you think that we're fighting against our own self-interest there in a way of trying to save our year, but maybe creating a situation that is untenable in terms of traffic later down the road?
Yeah. So, the fear is that by trying to reschedule everything, that we're going to create a worse situation for ourselves, right? And that no one will be able to make money, and there'll be shows with really low turnout. I think that could happen. I, just like many other promoters, have spent lots of time kind of thinking about what can we do to solve that problem? And I don't really know what the answer is. So, that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to, bouncing ideas around with other people about in this promoter alliance. Because, there's not a clear-cut solution to that problem. Promoters could just not book shows for the fall or just try to be extremely particular about what they book. I think there's a lot of drawbacks to that. And I think a lot of promoters who feel that way too. So, and just because you pass on shows doesn't mean that there's not another promoter or 5 other promoters in your market who are going to take those shows. And so that doesn't even solve the problem. I think we have to figure out ways to combine, perhaps, and maybe to, strategically plan so that they're not, back to back in every venue, every night in every market.
A lot of coordination to happen there for sure. And an interesting problem that we're all going to have to, as a business, address together. So let's talk about the ways that you're reaching out to independent promoters right now and independent buyers. If people are interested in joining the Independent Promoter Alliance, what should they do today? Where can they find you guys at online? What's going on?
What we did to get the word out really was just send out emails to promoters who we knew and ask those people to share the Google form with other promoters and other talent buyers that they knew. So it's really just been word of mouth so far. And that's why Dave and I were both so happy to see, the growth so quickly, without really doing much other than sending out a handful of emails to people we knew. So, if independent promoters are interested in joining the Independent Promoter Alliance, all you need to do is send me an email. You can send it to Jessica@thebroadberry.com. It's Jessica, Jessica. The Broadberry is TheBroadberry.com. And I will just shoot you back a link to the registration form and you'll be in.
We'll be sure to include Jessica's email in the show notes as well for this podcast. So be sure to check it out. Last question for you, Jessica. Now, there are a lot of trade organizations out there from, IAVM to Polestar to AIBA to these kind of trade organizations and conferences. Where do you see Independent Promoter Alliance fitting into that landscape, and how do you think it's going to be received by the people in the industry?
Well, I think I can speak to the second part perhaps better than the first. I think everyone in the music industry should and will be supportive of this alliance and endeavor because, simply put, when independent buyers start talking to each other, we're going to figure out ways to improve the work we do, which just makes us better at the thing that we do. And everybody wants everyone to be as effective as possible and as good at their jobs as they can be. I mean, for example, just in like basic everyday conversations I have with other promoters, I regularly hear about, different marketing strategies and different marketing ideas that, I had never thought of before that are really useful. I think that an alliance like this opens up lots of job opportunities for promoters and lots of opportunities for collaboration as well between independent buyers. And I mean, I guess just overall, everyone wants to be as educated as possible about the work that they do. The more informed you are, the better you can be at your job. And that just helps everyone. So I would hope, and I think that, this really benefits everyone in every corner of the music industry, whether you're the artist, the manager, the agent, the label, the promoter, certainly. I think it's a benefit to everyone. So I would hope everybody would receive it that way. And I would add just on a personal note that I think this is really good for independent female promoters, of which I personally know like 2 or 3. So I would hope that this would tangentially sort of be helpful in that arena.
Amazing stuff. Jenika Gordon from the Broadberry Entertainment Group and the newly formed Independent Promoter Alliance. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Remember, if you are an independent promoter or talent buyer, please reach out to Jenika at thebroadberry.com, and we'll be sure to include her email address in the show notes as well. Thanks for coming on, Jenika.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
What an amazing interview. It was great that Luke got a chance to sit down with Jenika Gordon of the Broadberry Entertainment Group, speaking on the Independent Promoter Alliance right here on your own Friends at the Promoter 101 podcast.
Hi, this is Jason Miller from Live Nation, SVP of International and Emerging Markets. You are on Promoter 101.
Up next on Promoter 101, we have a special war story from one of my closest friends and colleagues, the tour manager for Home Free, Jenika Marion Foust. Now, very recently, this band had embarked on a 4-week-long European tour that was widely sold out in advance. They arrived in Europe for their first show on February 22nd. It was slated to play out through March 21st, right during some of the biggest outbreaks in Europe. Jenika is here today to share her war story of how they got the fuck out of Munich.
This is a very special war story coming to us in practically real time. Jenika Foust is the tour manager for Home Free. Now, she's got an amazing story about the band's tour and how exactly they found out that their tour was coming to an end in Europe very recently. Welcome to the podcast, Jenika.
Hi, good to be here. Basically, it started out to be a weird tour to begin with because just kind of the rumor of coronavirus was going around. And so we weren't sure what exactly was going to happen, especially as news came in from Italy. We had a show in Milan. So as news came in, we just, there was more and more uncertainty of whether we were going to have that show to begin with. So it took about a week, I think, and then we ended up canceling Milan. And that was a smaller show. So it was a little less logistically difficult to do just because less tickets, at least, to refund. But we were so sad to do that. And then things were going well. But each country we would leave, and then like a day or two later, they would like either close events over 100 people or over 10 people. So we kind of felt this pressure and we were like, well, we're just taking it day by day to see, whatever's going to happen. But things were going smoothly. And then we arrived to Vienna, Austria, got there, day was going great. And then about 30 minutes into being there, the promoter comes up to me and says, I've got some bad news. The show is canceled. And it's 1,000 people that night. And so they were like, all events over 100 people are canceled. So then it just became, it was a little chaotic because I'm like, okay, I have to call a bunch of people. I need to call our manager, Luke Pierce. We have to get in touch with everybody else so we can all be canceling the show and putting that out on social media together so people don't get mixed messages. And then basically we had to figure out where to go next because our bus driver has specific limitations on how much he can drive in one day. And we had just rolled in from Poland the day before. So he had limited hours he could drive. And so basically I'm sitting there trying to figure out, are we going to go to Munich where our next show is in a couple days, or where are we going to go? What are we going to do? So I talked to our bus driver and he said, I have 6 more hours on my work clock. If you pile in the bus now, I will step on it and get you guys to Germany. But then I need to shut the bus down for 24 hours. So we all piled in, we raced over to Munich, and then we had a day off, which, was fun, but troublesome because it's an expense that obviously we weren't expecting. And then also with a canceled show, we're not going to get our bonus for that night. And, so all sorts of things are going through my head at that point. So far, Germany hadn't canceled anything. So as far as we knew, it was a go ahead for the show in Munich the next day or 2 days later. And then about midnight rolls around in Munich. I get a call from Luke Pierce saying, hey, the president just gave an address. You guys need to get on a plane. And we were like, what? Kind of groggy too. And he's like, you guys need to get on a plane on Friday. And at that point, it was Wednesday night. And he's like, I think the president was about to give an address. So he's like, book your flights out. I think this is going to be big. I was like, okay, well, I'll figure out. We'll unload the trailer full of rental gear tomorrow. We'll kind of get our ducks in a row and then we'll go. He said, get a good night's sleep. That's all you can do for now. Get your ducks in a row for tomorrow. And then you can leave Friday morning. I said, sounds good. So I, had a FaceTime with all the crew members. We all got on the same page. I reached out to the band. So we were all good to go for Friday morning leave. And then about an hour and a half later, Luke called. It's 1:30 and he goes, you guys need to get on a plane as soon as possible. Our president just announced that he's going to be closing borders. I had gotten a text too from my friend at Delta saying Delta's canceling all their flights to and from Europe. That's what it sounds like. You guys are going to want to get on a plane very soon. So at that moment, it was just like, okay, this is go time. We need to get out of here, because you had no idea how badly the airport was going to be packed or what the situation was going to be. And this was before Donald Trump said that U.S. citizens were exempt from this rule. But we just had no idea. So we went, it was about 2 a.m. at that point. I woke up our drunk crew members because, they're in Munich. They were just at like Hofbrauhaus. And so I'm like, sorry guys to wake you, but I need you to go try and sober up as much as you can so you can go label all the things in the trailer and unload it in the dark. And it was raining and we got to the tour bus and they had their headlamps strapped on and they were, kind of tripping around a little bit, but they were labeling everything, getting ready to go. Our bus driver was still sleeping. So I sent him a long message and let the bus company know, hey, we're dipping out. And so, you're going to wake up and we're all going to be gone. So we got out of there around 8 a.m. and we made it home. We touched down in Atlanta and we were very grateful, but it was crazy. And then, we just our main goal was just to get out of Europe and back into the States. And then I kind of tied up some loose ends. Obviously Luke and his assistant were on it the whole time too. So I just sent emails to the promoters and was in contact with a few other promoters. They checked in with me. Everybody's been super kind too. I've had some promoters check in, just be like, hey, thinking about you guys, hope you guys are well. It's kind of crazy here and hope you guys are healthy. But it was very jarring to get back. And all of a sudden you're just home. And then you also have to be in your house. So you're going 100 miles per hour and it just felt like you were flying that fast and then just hit a brick wall and you're like, oh, tour's done. Okay. And then there was the uncertainty too of spring tour at that point too. It was just so bizarre and unlike anything I think any of us had ever experienced.
It's got to just be jarring being in Europe, seeing the financial side of that on one side, seeing the safety being another concern for not only your band, but for your fans.
Right.
Can we get out? Will we be stranded here? How does that work if we are? What are our options?
Yeah, we were worried about our health, but more so worried about getting stuck somewhere. Because a lot of these guys too, have children at home and they don't want to be stuck in Europe for 30 days. And there were so many rumors and speculation flying around. And of course, social media kind of just inflames all that. There was I felt like the whole world was beginning to vibrate with anxiety too. And that kind of affected the attitude on the tour too. People were a little bit anxious and we kind of just took it second by second. And there, of course, like you said, was that uncertainty too of how this was going to affect our tour financially.
Now you're safe home in Nashville now. You've been back in the U.S. for just over 2 weeks.
Yeah. We all quarantined. I was pretty sick when I got back, but I went and got tested just to be sure. And they just said it was, they tested me, came back negative. So we kind of at that point could assume that everybody who was on my flight probably was okay. And they all self-quarantined for 14 days. And yeah, luckily we were totally fine.
Amazing that you got a test within itself.
Yeah. Vanderbilt had set up a tent in conjunction with the CDC, and it was like day 2 of its existence and not many people had known about it. So I rolled up and got a test and told them I was just in some of the main zones, ground zero of the virus in Europe. And they were like, yeah, we're going to want to test you. I had a fever and a cough. And so all of the big symptoms. But I was fine a few days later and grateful for that.
Anxiety that goes along with that once you get to the point that you think you might need to be tested and waiting for the couple of days to go. It's like, you got to assume you've got it in the meantime. So that's just having it or not having it. At the time, you got to assume you've got it. And that's got to be just a mental trip.
Right. I figured if anything, I would want to give the government some data at that point, just because we really didn't have that much information. So at least I'd be able to say, here are my symptoms. Okay, do you have it or do you not? And they can kind of weed out more and more what are COVID symptoms and what are not. It was a bizarre experience because the tent had a ton of people in it and you strapped on a mask right away and people were walking around in all the whole like kind of hazmat gear. And it was bizarre. I was like, I feel like I'm in a movie right now. It was really bizarre. There was a lot of shouting and everybody was just that high anxiety and uncertainty that was pervasive.
Sounds like a medical version of Black Friday. It sounds very scary.
Yeah, but we're happy. All the Home Free crew and artists are safe and healthy. Everybody's quarantining with their families. So feeling grateful for that for sure. And feeling affirmed for getting out when we did. Like 2 days after we left, just the airports were slammed. They were running screening on people. There were hours and hours of lines. So I feel good about the decision to leave when we did. But it was an expensive decision for sure. Just getting these last minute flights. It was like, wow, okay. We have to pay what we have to pay, but that's a big group of people to get home on on our dime that we didn't expect to spend at that point.
Well, something all the bands that didn't win the Sing Up can be thankful for. They didn't have to experience that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys are safe and all back safely. And hopefully we'll see you guys back on the road this August.
We're excited to get back out there. We're all kind of itching to get back on the road.
We're thrilled to have you back. Thank you so much for taking time and telling us your amazing escape from Europe story, Jenika.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jenika is the best, and what a crazy story. We've been talking about the agency problems. We've been talking about the promoter issues. We've been talking about all of the other issues with the venues. But to hear it from the actual band side of point of view, that is a fresh perspective I don't think we've heard yet. And I'm glad we got a chance to share that right here on the Promoter 101 podcast.
I'm Jason Miller. I'm the president of Live Nation New York, live and direct on Promoter 101.
Tweets of the week.
Dan, it could not be Promoter 101 without some tweets of the week. So let's start here. Reality TV has nothing on the actual world right now.
That one just kind of speaks for itself. Yeah, shit's fucked up, as you all know.
Remember when South by Southwest canceled and we thought this was the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, they were the good old days, right?
This is a funny one from this week, Dan. So this is what retirement feels like.
Well, thanks for the preview. We'll see you in about 20 years.
Another great one, especially in the area of Zoom. We set... Okay. All right. I see what you did here. We set a time for a meeting, move it twice, and still show up late.
Fresh off the web. Actually, we haven't even tweeted this one yet, Luke. This was especially written for, well, in tribute of you, my friend.
Thank you to both Dan and Connor for accommodating me moving the recording of this podcast twice and then showing up 10 minutes late. That'll do it for Tweets of the Week. Make sure you keep up with Dan on Twitter. He is at The Jew.
I certainly am at The Jew.
Hi, this is Jason Miller from Live Nation, SVP of International and Emerging Markets. You are on Promoter 101.
Very excited about this week's featured interview. We have manager, promoter, entrepreneur, Thomas Cussins in from Ineffable Music. Here's that interview.
Promoter 101, the quarantine sessions begin all over again. It's like deja vu. Thomas Cussins right here on Promoter 101. Now, if you know the story, shut up and listen and don't ruin it for everybody else. No spoilers. Thomas is a buddy, and he's got an awesome career. And let's pick it up right from the get-go. Let's talk about how you got on Pincus's desks as an assistant, what you learned there, how that all came together. Let's start there.
For sure. So I was managing Collie Buds, which came out of throwing shows at UC Santa Cruz when I was in school there. Working for Gary Ty at the Catalyst as a booking assistant, which was my first real mentor in the business. And I had done a Collie Buds tour where I booked it all myself, 29 days and 29 shows in 31 days. So yeah, I didn't know that artists need off days yet. So trust me, I was hearing about that one on the seventh show in a row, you know.
You had already been an agent you'd already been a promoter or talent buying assistant at the Catalyst, and you'd already been a manager.
Yeah. So this all happened pretty quickly, but from UC Santa Cruz, me and my roommate Igor threw a party. We were renting apartments to pay for school, and we rented one to a guy that was like, I'm really good at music. I got a lot of friends, but I can't get a show. We're like, well, how hard could it be to get a show? So started calling places, figured out it was actually pretty hard. Through our first show, all of our friends came. We were stoked, made like $200. Through a second show, half of our friends came. Through a third show, none of our friends came. And we realized, okay, we got to start booking bands that have their own fans. And that led to bringing out Collie Buddz from Bermuda. And he had just dropped a project on Columbia that was doing pretty well, both in reggae and in hip hop. So we liked the crossover of the genres. And we brought him out for some shows. And as we were working together, Columbia dropped him. And he was like, well, how are we going to make any money? I'm going to have to go get a construction job. I was like, well, no, man, we'll tour. We'll sell merch. It'll work, no problem. Forget that thing. And I promised him $100,000 if he gave me a month of his time. So I said, I'd pay for everything. I'd make sure, all the transportation was covered, all the shows happened. Just give me a month of your time. I'll pick you up in a Sprinter and we'll go do this thing. So he did it. I mean, I didn't have $100,000, far from it, but I just figured, hey, I got to book as much as I can in this time. Started calling places. Most people didn't want to give me the date, so I rented the club, and we did that tour. And luckily, it went really well. And Pincus actually came to one of the shows and really enjoyed the set, really enjoyed the show. And we kind of started talking from there. And he ended up giving us the opening slot on the Slightly Stoopid Summer Tour. That was Stupid, Cypress Hill, and Collie Buddz.
Great hookup.
Yeah, so it worked out. That worked out great. It was a great look for us to be able to see a class act touring operation like Slightly Stoopid firsthand and get out there and go to some of these small amphitheaters throughout the country. And at that point, Jason was getting promoted. Jason Kupperman. Pincus offered me the job, and man, it was both the hardest thing I've ever done and also the most rewarding. It was really like my graduate school in terms of really learning who all the major people are that do everything in the business, how if one thing happens over here, it affects something else, trying to figure out when somebody called, what they're calling about before they even told me. And then, of course, deal structure. That's the big lesson from Pincus. So incredibly demanding, but learned the whole business, got to see all the spinning plates from that.
Yeah, now one of the smartest guys in the industry, Aaron Pincus. If you're going to get a front row of the business, it's not a bad place to start your boot camp off by any means. How long were you on Aaron's desk?
It was about 2 years. He'll say it was less than 2 years. I'll say it was more than 2 years, but it's about 2 years. About a year and a half into it, I realized that it was too far away from the show for me. He's putting in 18-hour days. He's working his butt off all the time. After those days, I didn't really feel like going to see a concert anymore. And I didn't want to lose the love, why I started doing this in the first place. So, I told him, I said, I'll stay as long as you need to get somebody else in here for you. This is not going to ultimately be my career, because I just miss the show. I miss being at the show. And when you're a promoter, yeah, a lot of the work is at the desk, but it's also a lot of the work is at the show. And when you're in management, a lot of the work is at the show too. So that was kind of the big thing for me. He was really gracious about it and has since supported me and my business and my clients really greatly and deeply in a lot of big ways. And, he's still on the Collie Buddz team.
Nice. Okay, so you moved back to Northern Cali, Santa Cruz?
Yeah, so Santa Cruz, and then transitioned to Berkeley, where I live now. So
you went back, you were booking at the Catalyst, right?
So I left without any real plan. I knew it wasn't going to be my thing to be an agent. So this was 2012. I left right after South by Southwest. So left Austin, then came back to California, still working with Collie. I had kind of stepped away from all the management stuff, but still dealing with him on the agency side of things while I was with Pincus. And my partner, Igor, who still manages him to this day, he was in on that stuff. So yeah, I came back and, we're working on Collie, trying to figure out new avenues, new opportunities. And then Gary Ty, who was one of my big mentors at the Catalyst, he retired. And he had been the only person to ever book the Catalyst for 35 years. And when he retired, they gave me the opportunity, which was great. I think at that point it was a pretty big unknown for them to go with myself versus somebody who'd been in the real hot seat of being a talent buyer for a longer period of time. I said, hey, I'll take a more incentive-based deal and give me a shot, and I'll outwork anybody else you can get in here. So give me a shot, and we did it, and we really moved it from more of the old Gary model, which was, hey, some venue has got to be the lowest offer on the tour. It's going to be me, and focusing on just on trying to hit winners. Gary had an amazing winner percentage. He'd win on almost every show, but he didn't take a lot of shots. And my theory was, and still is that volume business and the clubs really works well. So
you're trying to move beer, yeah,
right.
You can afford to lose a little bit at the door if you're moving enough beer over the counter.
Exactly. So yeah, the catalyst was kind of the next step in that model, and I wanted to be known there as somebody who would get back to agents really, really quickly. Somebody who would send their offers really fast and just be generally responsive, because I wanted Santa Cruz to be on the initial route for bands. Obviously, that when the RA gives a territorial agent that route, a good percentage of the time, the only markets that are going to be on that route are the ones that on the ultimate route are the ones that were on that initial route handed to the territorial. And I knew Santa Cruz wasn't necessarily on everybody's route. It was, LA, San Francisco, Portland, maybe San Diego snuck in there. And I wanted Santa Cruz to be in there because we have the huge buffer zone of San Jose, 1 million people in between San Francisco and Santa Cruz. So I think, one of the best compliments I ever got was from David Lefkowitz, who said, hey man, like all these routes I'm getting now, Santa Cruz is on there now. So we were very excited to be able to increase the volume there and prove that it was a legitimate market on the West Coast.
No, that's awesome. Well, something you said that you must have picked up when you were an agent's assistant. I was going to be very responsive. That must have been something you learned working for Aaron, because promoters don't learn that as a promoter, that's a thing for a very long time. And you learned that early on.
Yeah. I mean, when I was Pincus's assistant, I was doing his ticket counts daily. So
you know who sucked and who didn't when it come to that. It's like they're the guys that were sending them out at 10 a.m. and then there's the guys who are chasing to 5 o'clock at night hoping.
Exactly. So I'm calling people. I'm like, can I just get a ticket count? I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I had to just make up the count because I wasn't going to turn in a ticket count sheet that didn't have a number. If Pincus saw a ticket count sheet without a number, he was not going to be happy. So sometimes you got to add 7 and make it up the next day.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I've definitely gotten those phone calls like on my cell phone from the assistant. Like, dude, I need a count. It's like, really? Calling me for a count? Probably why you're not getting it. You're calling me. Okay, cool. It's like, yeah, got it. But no, I think that's got to be a thing you learn early. Customer service in this business matters. How quickly you get back. Even if you say no, making somebody wait for a no opposed to getting to the no immediately. Like making people know that, if they're going to be knocking on other doors, that you're not the guy for them on this. Like that goes a long way. Making somebody wait 3 days or a week for a no, especially when time is running short. Like you get on the fuck you list real quick doing that.
For sure. And Gary Ty, he always said, you never know who the person on the phone is going to be one day. So, treat them all like the same way. So, I mean, that never burning any bridges. And that's really helped as people I've worked with, people I was assistants with. I was in the office before I helped things move to Austin. I was in the office there with Chip. I was in the office with Dan and Fred. Jonathan Levine was in there, and other assistants were in there, like Joe Tamian and Sarah Bullwinkle were assistants. Mike Greisch was an assistant. So I was surrounded with this incredible array of talent.
I don't think any of those people are assistants anymore. I think that's your point, though, right?
Exactly.
All right. So you move back, you're booking, you're doing well. Is this when you start to dip your toes into the management world again and taking on some more there and diversifying? Because where does stick figure fit into the mix?
So that's exactly where stick figure fits in. And, I just to backtrack for 2 seconds, I started my business on MySpace. So that was my outlet for reaching people. And when that went under, I realized from that, like, I need to be everywhere I possibly can be. And from working with Pincus, I realized if I wanted to stay independent and be able to make this actually a career, I needed to be on every side of the coin, be able to be in every place and see things from every angle. And so, yeah, at that time when I was right as I was starting to book The Catalyst, I booked a small festival in New Mexico. And Patrick McAuliffe had booked a Stick Figure and sold them to me. As we were working on that and promoting that festival, he told me, hey, and this guy sold 50,000 records on his own, no manager. It's you really got to check this set out. Like the guy is something else. He's got a crazy business mind. And so I was like, okay, cool. That's great. I never heard of him really, but give you the solid on this show. Like that music sounds pretty good. Anyway, so I at the festival, I see this guy setting up his merch, and this is amazing. I mean, this is like a 1,200 person festival, and there's this amazing merch setup that you might see at an arena show. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And it was actually Scott Stick Figure. It was him setting up his own merch. We had a great chat. He gave me a copy of his album Burial Ground. And after the festival, I went home, put it in my car because cars still had CD players then. And
hit yourself a little bit. All right.
Yeah. And I listened to it, no joke, 86 times in a row because front to back, nothing had really, really moved me the same way since I got Collie Buds' first album. Because front to back, it was great. And I started calling people and say, hey, you know this guy Stick Figure? And almost nobody knew him. And yet he's selling all these records. And, the only people that did, guys like John Phillips, he's like, yeah, he's amazing. Like, it's great. There's only a few people that knew him, but those people that knew him really liked him. So I was like, okay, he hasn't hit his peak because most of these people I trust in this burgeoning American reggae scene don't know who he is yet. So anyways, I call him up, tell him, I was like, dude, we got to meet, come to Oakland, come to my office. Let's really sit down and do this thing. Yeah, we've been working together ever since. He sold out Red Rocks in under 72 hours this year. Hopefully we'll see what happens with the date given the times, but it's an incredibly loyal fan base, no radio play, but just really, really strong numbers across the board, especially with repeat listeners. People are going in and just consuming it over and over and over again. So it's been a real blessing. I mean, after working for Pincus, the experience of an independent business like Stick Figures, where everything is controlled internally and there's no middlemen taking cuts of anything at any level, even down to fan club and VIP packages. We're handling it all in house. It's been a really great experience.
Now you've got a management company that's very successful. You're a concert promoter. You're booking multiple markets. Now you've entered into the festival business too. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. So Levitate, which is outside of Boston, is actually in Scott Stick Figure's hometown. And when I signed on to manage him, one of the events that he was confirmed for was Levitate, which at that point was the second annual. So I go through that show, through everything with him on that show. We play the show out. Scott calls me. He's like, man, there was some things that were a little loose, but there is the real spirit here. There's a real support for this event. The team is amazing. Dan and Jess, who are running this event, they really have something on their hands. Like, you need to get with them. You need to start working with them. So I call up Dan and Jess, the founders of Levitate. We had some great conversations. Ultimately, I got involved as a partner in the talent buyer right after that second year. Yeah, now going into our 8th year, that event is now partnered with Live Nation, and sold out the last 4 years. So it's been really, really fun and exciting to be a part of that. In a way, I just right place, right time, because Dan and Jess really had the vision. They understood the kind of grassroots, blue collar work ethic it takes to make an experience. And so I'm over here just chasing experiences basically. And that's, there's nothing like it. My whole crew comes out that's used to working shows, used to being in the office, and we're out there like, lifting fences and putting scrim on. Even as the festival grew, we spend a week there just really doing the labor and making sure we really feel it from the ground up.
That's awesome. Now, this year you guys have got like solid headliners, including Jack Johnson, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jack was a dream. I mean, the festival was founded out of a surf shop. So there you go. Yeah, so I called Tom Chauncey basically every year about Jack, and it finally lined up this year. So it's always been cool to have a festival that gets recognized on a national scale that prominently features reggae. it's got the reggae, it's got the jam, it's got the blues, it's got the indie rock, it's got all these pieces that kind of you would expect to hear from a kid at a surf shop that's controlling the playlist. But yeah, it's this year's lineup and having Jack, we are very, very excited, and we're just trying to stay flexible given the current circumstances in the world.
But let's talk about some of the other stuff you're doing with some of the other indies. Dan Rankin, I think, is one of the cooler indies coming up in the country, and I know that you've taken an interest, and you guys are partnering festivals up here in Tacoma. And I thought that was a unique pickup for you that you guys decided to partner stuff. But you're doing some of that stuff all over the place. It seems like you're kind of branching in all directions. How'd that come to be?
Well, so Dan Rankin, we always really liked working with him on shows up there because he would put in that extra personal touch. We had clients play Reggae on the Way with him, some smaller club shows. And he came down and visited us at one of the small festivals that we work on called Dry Diggins in Placerville. And, we were just hanging out and just talking about how to organically grow reggae and roots music up in the Northwest. And I think a lot of it for me comes down to what the needs of our clients are, because we did a show actually with Dave Poe at Marymore. And we've had clients play there on packages, and it's a great venue, beautiful venue. But as I'm sure you know, if you're an outside person coming in and now you got a four-wall a venue like that, it's almost impossible for a promoter to make any money. It's almost impossible for the artist to make a reasonable share of gross on a series like that. And in sticking with the very indie kind of cut out the middleman mentality, when it came to shows up there, I wanted to see if I could find an option for our clients that didn't involve needing to be on a package that would make sense at Marymore. Something else that could be in that size that could, it could be a fun summertime event that we could kind of control a little bit more of the ancillaries, really. And so for Dan, it was like, hey, you're doing a great job. We really like everything you're doing. We want to see if we can amplify it on a small scale. It's the same reason people partner in anything, but this is a small scale. It's like we can come in. We have this in-house team. We've been doing this. We've been running this up and down for 14 years now. We can help make the size of the pie bigger for you. So yeah, very excited about that. We have a similar relationship with Robert Duderman in Florida, who runs all around Florida, throwing up interesting events. Everything from a big country show to a seafood festival. We help streamline his operations over there. But again, just a guy we really liked how he promoted our clients. He would get billboards for club shows because he would just make a trade with whoever owned the billboard. He would pass out more flyers than any other promoter we worked with. So, guy we like that person that's doing a really good job at promoting. So we're like, hey, it's a natural fit for us.
Sounds like a plan. So now Dave Poe comes into the mix, and there's another change. What happened here?
So Dave actually, comes to the reggae side of things again because he was the agent for The Green, a band that we work with that is managed by a gentleman named Kimo out in Hawaii, but under kind of the umbrella of our management company. And Dave was The Green's original agent before he left the agency side and went to be a talent buyer. And so we always really liked working with him again. It was the thing. And when he decided that he wanted to make a change and leave his current company, he wanted to go out on his own. I was like, man, well, we got you. We support you. If you want to strike out on your own, we will back you to do that. And you have full use of our resources. And yeah, so it was kind of, again, just a person that we really like working with, long relationship. He had this idea to sort of connect independent venues across the country to give us all a little bit more leverage. And that's what we're really fighting for. That's why we continue to expand, is because I just want to be able to have a shot, get my hat in the ring, have my offer considered when there are such giant, amazing promoters. When you got Live Nation and AEG doing tour deals and doing a great job with really strong people across the board, I'm like, how can I have a shot here? I have to be able to be quick, nimble on my feet, not say no, give everybody an option, go to Humboldt County if someone needs something in Humboldt County, even though, I only want to go up to Humboldt County, to go chill in the woods. I don't necessarily want a four wall a show up there, but I'll do it for you if you need the show. And, so Dave's idea was to, continue connecting venues across the country. And he has experience with larger venues. I really like the sort of 300 to 1,000 cap venue. That's my bread and butter. And Dave is more in that, 2,000 to 3,000 capacity. And so he's out there connecting the dots. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But basically, we're just trying to be like a poor man's version of you and Zinc.
God, you should try to be a rich man's version of that. So you guys are partnering in some form, but not on everything? Or is that a full partnership?
Yeah, it's a partnership. He's the principal. It's his baby, and we're supporting him in every way we can.
So it's a JV kind of thing. I like it. So what's the future hold? What's your vision?
Really what we want to do is we want to be able to stay flexible on every side of the coin. We're releasing music. We're going to our friends that are promoters right now, asking whether they have live sessions. I've invested heavily in internal staff to do playlist pitching internally, to kind of provide a lot of services that a lot of companies outsource, so that we can basically be a label for our clients. We can be a label for our venues. All of this content that exists out there, we're trying to get it out to people in as many ways as possible. And it doesn't really matter if it's monetized, because the money will come as long as the content is out there. We're trying to be everywhere with merch, with live streams now. We're trying to be able to withstand any crazy big hit to one area of the business, because we're so versatile and in very, very a lot of different areas.
I've been hearing sounds about a space you bought in Oakland. Is it a rehearsal space or studio or office? What is this?
Yeah, so we actually bought Green Day's old studio. So it was called Jingletown, and they now Great Stone Studios. And us at Ineffable and Scott Stick Figure, we bought it together. It's got all our offices up front. We got 22 offices up front, and then we got 3 music studios. So I love it, because if I'm on phone and email all day and I'm just like, what am I doing? I can go back and listen to some music being made and remember again why we're doing this. Like, see the creation happen there. So a lot of history in that building. It's also, it's also nice to pay rent to yourself, So
you legitimately own the dirt.
Yes. That's, I think, ultimately we want to be self-sufficient. And that was why we bought the venue, Felton Music Hall, up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, the old Don Quixote's. Fun little 350 capper, just a little gem in the woods, kind of like a Pappy and Harriet's vibe. And that's my retirement spot. I'll go book some 350 cap acts and sip some beers in the mountains.
All right. So we've taken a nice walk through history, and you've been very giving of your time, and I appreciate this. And I really enjoy talking to you, regardless if there's an audience or not. But I want to talk about what's going on right now in history. You are an independent business. You are diversified, and you got your hands in a lot of places, and you're invested in a lot of places. With that said, the industry's kind of haltered in most cases, especially from the live side. How is that affecting business, and how do you see this moving forward?
Yeah, well, we're not selling tickets right now. That's obviously a concern. I mean, luckily at Ineffable specifically, we planned for bad times. We've never spent beyond our means, dipped into our future ticket sales, so to speak. And, so right now in the short term, nothing changes at the company. Everyone's still there. Everyone's still getting full salary, and that's great. At the clubs, it's difficult, because you got hourly workers that work at clubs. And so we've been trying to figure out ways to help them, getting some funds going to help those folks. Really, right now, we're shifting as much of our attention into supporting our artists by making sure their other 2 businesses are live, make sure they're doing really good business on their merch, and making sure that they own their masters and they can monetize directly their music. And we're trying to put out as much music as possible, as many collaborations as possible. We actually just dropped the first track from a 21-song compilation that we produced, where Collie-Buddz made a beat, and we had 21 different artists make a song out of that beat. And so it's one big compilation, but every artist is tagging themselves and the other artists. And so they're all pushing each other. And that really helps move, get some new eyes on people and move things forward. So, yeah, I mean, right now, as it stands on the club business, what we're trying to do, and this has been, if there's a silver lining in this whole thing, it's that I've never before had such pleasant and friendly conversations with agents. I mean, it's amazing. The spirit of working together that we've seen is just a beautiful thing. And I know we're all feeling that, like, everybody's actually working together to make things happen. If we worked at this speed, I mean, we'd be doing twice as much stuff normally, in normal times. So I feel really good that what's happening, that we're going to be able to get through it, and that everybody's banding together to help everybody else in the industry get through it. And I think we're going to see a different landscape. I think we're going to see more indies pop up and be able and come out of this thing. And I think we're going to see some amazing music, because artists are sitting at home working on music. And I'm excited to be able to push that music in one form or another. And I think we also have to, look internally at how we're operating and make sure we're not over leveraging ourselves. As you expand, obviously, there's a tendency to do that sometimes. And I'm very, very thankful that, we've kind of expanded slowly in terms of the moves we've made. Yeah. But really for us, it's about content. And we have a nonprofit arm called Rootfire, which gives 0 interest loans to artists to put out their albums so they can own their master. We just did Steel Pulse's album that was nominated for a Grammy on that label. And that platform is doing, live streams, and 100% of the money is going to the artist, or if they're doing well, they're giving it to their crew and band members. And we're just trying to right now, in this time, in the short term, take care of everybody in our sphere and in the associated spheres. And then we want to just come through this thing stronger together with everybody and push forward.
Man, when the fuck do you sleep?
We have a lot of really good people. We've invested all our money in people. So it's actually kind of weird for me right now in this time. It's like, normally I'm rolling from one call to the next, jumping from one thing to the next. And now I'm just sitting back and getting to look at the systems that were built, doing what they're supposed to be doing, and everybody playing ball and everybody wanting to keep dates alive and make things happen. And I'm just, despite the horribleness of everything with coronavirus, there is this sort of silver lining of hope that people are working together and coming together, which I'm trying to focus as much as possible on that.
Well, and there are some silver linings to this. It's like pollution level in some of these major cities has never been so low. Fish are swimming in Venice in the canals for the first time in decades. Like, the things that, Mother Nature's been able to heal while this is going on. The ozone layer is closed up more than it has in 2 decades. Like, this stuff is incredible.
Absolutely.
All we had to do is all forced to be home.
Yeah, and now if everybody just actually stays home and stays away, maybe we can salvage a little bit of summer.
Well, that's the hope. I can't thank you enough for taking the time and talking to us on Promoter 101 today.
Thanks so much, Steiny. Appreciate it, man.
Thomas Cousin right here on Promoter 101.
Dan, what an absolutely amazing interview. I think one of our best ones yet. Thomas, clearly on the rise, growing his business, carving out a great space for himself in the Bay Area. Clearly a next level independent promoter, and glad to have him on this podcast.
It reminds me of an upcoming Bill Silva. You don't really see people doing the manager, promoter, festival. You can't really do it all simultaneously historically, but he's proven that it's kind of working.
It seems like it's working for him for sure.
Next level mind. Somebody to definitely keep an eye out, because he's moving up quick in all directions, it seems.
I'm Jason Miller. I'm the president of Live Nation New York, live and direct on Promoter 101.
That does it. Episode 208 of Promoter 101 in the bag. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I hope you are safe and healthy at home, enjoying a little bit of this time. Hopefully we brought you a little bit of levity in otherwise very weird and very uncertain times. So thanks for tuning in. And thank you to all of our special guests today, from Broadberry Entertainment Group, Jessica Gordon, from Ineffable Music, Thomas Cussins, and from the touring world, Jenika, Marion, Foust. If you like what you heard today, or you want to hear something different, let us know what you're thinking. Make sure you email Dan and I at steiny@promoter101.net. We want to hear from you.
And we'll return next week with more Promoter 101. We're going to try another one of those panel sessions that everybody seemed to enjoy so much. So we've got an all-new panel, and we'll be talking about real-time issues. We're going to leave that as a special surprise on who that's going to be, just in case anybody flakes, and then you won't know that they flaked on us. And then we're going to keep doing shows each week during this time of crisis to keep you informed and, frankly, to keep me and Luke and Connor entertained while we're locked inside. But in the meantime, feel free to shout out your concepts to us. we'll be happy to try and make any of that stuff happen as we go. And, if you help us with our homework, we'd appreciate it because we're making this shit up as we go.
Until then, we're wishing that shows just come back and play as soon as possible.
Be great to just have shows. Then we can worry about selling them out once we get them. Yeah. Anyway, cheers.
Wash your hands and call your mother.
Adios, sayonara. Hope you have a nice tomorrow. There's no need to even bother checking on me. Like a puff of marijuana in and out and on to other parts of the world. Other parts of the world. Don't even think about returning. There's nothing here for you to see. Way back a long time ago, you had a fighting chance. Now you're just eternally late for the dance. Adios, sayonara. Hope you have a nice tomorrow. There's no need even bother checking on me. Like the puff of marijuana in and out and on to other parts of the world. Other parts of the world. Don't even think about apologies. There is no way to make amends. Possibly you could have done the whole thing differently. Now you're just a stupid slut. Adios, sayonara. Hope you have a nice tomorrow. There's no need to even bother checking on me. Like a puff of marijuana in and out and on to other parts of the world. Other parts of the world. Adios, sayonara. Hope you have a nice tomorrow. There's no need to even